The code is the set of core values that we as Revived Church look to embody. It's a set of phrases that enables us to communicate biblical concepts and values of how God expects his people to live. It's not all of them, but we believe that here at Revive, that if we can embrace this code, we will be better placed to outwork all that God has for us, not just individually, but as a church.
In Matthew 13:33, there is a parable that Jesus tells. It's one of his shortest, which talks about kingdom. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed into about 60 pounds of flour until it worked all through the dough. We believe as Christians that we are part of his kingdom and that our lives here on earth can't be compartmentalized or broken up into boxes. We live our lives here under his kingdom rule and authority. We've embraced this code as a family, and it goes across all areas of our life: family, friends, business, our marriage, our finances, our church, all of which is kingdom. It's a whole life approach, and we'd encourage you to consider if these core values might seep a little bit deeper than just who we are when we're at Revive Church, whether they can bleed into every area of your lives.
Yeah, it's great. This video is actually unpacking the first value of the code, and that is we look beyond ourselves. So the main scripture for this is based upon Philippians 2, verses 3 to 4. It's actually much wider than just those verses, but we'll go with that. Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interest, but take an interest in others too.
Great scripture. And in the context of the wider scripture of that chapter, this is all about having a Christ-like attitude. It talks about how Jesus didn't consider the fact that he was God as something to brag about and be proud of, but that he was willing to give that up, give everything up, his needs, his privileges for others.
Looking beyond ourselves is in essence considering the needs of others, both in the church family and in the wider community, not just our own. It often looks like sacrifice and putting into others without any expectation of return. We mentioned kingdom before, and Rose mentioned that, and from that perspective, this value goes beyond Revive Church and actually into our day-to-day lives and for those people that we encounter.
Within the church family, this value promotes unity. In Philippians 2, that chapter, it says also about being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and mind. And it goes on to say that to do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. This within the body is about championing each other, not about position or ambition. It's about cheering each other on and encouraging those on the journey that are journeying with us in discipleship.
That's right. In a wider sense, this value promotes mission. The scripture calls us as the church to look outside of ourselves at Revive to those who are not yet here. It talks about Christ sacrificing himself through death on a cross and calls us to have that attitude. We are called to sacrifice self to meet the needs of those in the wider community, to demonstrate the love of Christ by the way we treat those who don't yet know him. So this core value is linked both to unity and to mission.
So a couple of examples from our own family. Like we said, this is the code that we have at home that we've adopted with our children. And, we often talk about looking beyond ourselves with our kids, as children are naturally self-centered. There's times in our house with 4 children where one child is kind of forcing their way of doing things onto others in a game or in a similar environment. And if we see the other child getting upset, then we'll ask them to consider the needs of the one who is upset, to look at them and consider how is this making them feel and how do they want to respond. We remind them that we look beyond ourselves, and this usually results in a backing down and an incorporation of the other's ideas to ensure that no one is upset.
Outside the family home, we We talk often with them about looking for the one on the edge, at school, looking to include those who may be isolated, not just focusing on their friends, and ensuring they're having a nice time. This has resulted in our daughter Faith being asked to spend sometimes her break time supporting a child with additional needs who struggles socially. And she loved being able to look beyond herself and her desires to play with her mates and put someone else's needs above her own.
Right now, there are so many opportunities to look beyond ourselves and to meet the practical needs of others in our community, to demonstrate the love of Jesus. And I know many of us are.
Great, so that's just a glimpse into the first value. We look beyond ourselves as part of the code.
We want to really encourage us as Revive Church, those that belong to Revive Church, to really strive for unity by looking beyond ourselves, cheering each other on and championing each other. And also, Revive Church, we want to ask you to look beyond Revive Church, look into our communities. How can we impact our community and make a difference for Christ?
So we want to leave you with a little bit of homework. Why not get around Philippians 2 this week?
Yeah.
Study it, take it on board, really understand what this core value is to you and how you might outwork it in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, and remember, it's kingdom. Let's see this outworked in every area of our lives.